Hello everyone, my name is Pam Le Noury and I am Head of Expedition Operations at Noble Caledonia. And we are keeping ourselves out of trouble by making engaging videos for our guests during this time. And I have with us today the legendary world's best cruise director by a long shot, introducing the one, the only Neil Horrocks. Hello Neil.
I feel like I should do a fanfare or something for that. Thank you very much, Pamela. Thank you.
How are you and where are you?
Where am I? I'm currently in my spare bedroom, but it'd be a very small person that could stay in here, in Hythe in Kent, where I live on the southeast coast. And yes, this is my grandfather clock over there, which is, I was given this by my grandmother, as I've got the only house with a high enough ceiling to accommodate it. So that's why I've got it. And surrounded by books and all my research that I do before every cruise. It's all here.
I see that. How many hours did it take you to manicure that beautiful background? You built it from scratch, no doubt.
Yeah, or it was the previous owner of the property, which is much more likely. But there we are. But it's good to be here, and it's nice to see you.
It's really nice to see you. And I think you were supposed. I think you're supposed to be in the Med right now, and yet here we are.
Yes, I should be. I've got the itinerary with me just as torture. I mean, I bought a diary for 2020, which is the most useless investment ever because it's now empty.
I know. For the first time in years, bought one of those big wall year calendars where you can like pin in all your things, and I was like, well, I'll just erase the couple of months in the middle.
Yes. I should be on the last of 5 cruises going from Valletta to Lisbon. And I should be in Cagliari in Sardinia today, and then we're at sea tomorrow, and then in Algiers. I was looking forward to Algiers. The last time I was in Algiers was about 6 years ago, and I invited the British ambassador to Algeria to come on board. If you invite an ambassador and offer them afternoon tea, they normally come. So
I mean, they've heard about our legendary afternoon teas on board. Everyone has, obviously.
Well, he came on board, and then he had his security detail with him, which was a couple of former SAS guys in a Range Rover, to make sure that no one knew who they were. They had the Union Jack flying from the corner of the car. Yeah. And then he turned up and he said, I said, it's very nice of you to come. Out of interest, you know, what made you accept the invitation? And he said, there are only 46 Britons registered living in Algeria. So we today have bought many more than that. So he thought, if there's going to be a problem, it's going to be where we are. So he thought he better come down. I felt very reassured. And then his wife turned up on a bicycle, because she doesn't get the security detail, which made me think that's crazy. If you you know, it should be both of them. So it was good fun. It was nice to meet you. Anyway, that's a little aside, which is, as you know, how I tend to present and do things.
Well, that's a wonderful little detail of the types of things that we get up to at sea. Yeah. Now, Neil, I have to say, there's not too many people in the world in any job where you just see someone in action and you think, my goodness, that person just landed in the most perfect career and job for them. It's just, I think many people go their whole lives without finding that job that just fits them like a glove. And seeing you in action, so many of our passengers will know you, they'll be familiar with you, no one would disagree. Seeing you in action is a joy to watch. How did you end up at sea? Because I'm sure as a kid, it's not like a natural, you know, career path. Most of us landed up at sea accidentally. Tell us the story.
Well, it was just, first of all, in case anyone is watching, I have not written this for Pam. This is all, I didn't know she was going to say. It's very sweet of you. But yeah, I do love the job. Passengers sometimes ask me, do you enjoy it? And my answer often, I'm sure it is you as well, is you couldn't do it if you don't. It would just drive you.
You can't fake it. No, you can't fake it.
Yeah. I've seen people who don't enjoy it, and they get found out very quickly. and they tend to tie themselves up in knots, and very soon they're gone. But no, when I was at school, I mean, I did stuff at school. I enjoyed playing the piano and things like that. But maths was always my strongest subject, and geography wasn't my strongest, but it was just I really had a passion for it. I love maps. I love these things. A book that I read, which is quite rare for me, which happens to be, it's amazing, it happens to be here. I didn't know it. When I was a student, was this one. It's called The Last Pink Bits by Harry Ritchie, and
it sounds a little.
Yes, but on the maps in the olden days, what was the British Empire was always coloured pink, and he took himself to what was left. So St Helena, Tristan da Cunha, Pitcairn, the Falklands, Gibraltar, all these places, and that sort of sparked an interest. And I always enjoyed geography, and I would have done it at A level, but it was all coursework based, and I was one of these people that was much better in an exam. Give me the facts, I'll learn it, I'll write them down, thank you very much. I didn't want to spend hours doing coursework and making things look pretty. So I did maths at university. I did maths and physics, but then changed to just maths, and had a good time there. But it was at university that I became much more outgoing, and I became the bar manager in our hall. I was elected the president of the junior common room, or senior student, and I organised twice the annual hall ball, and I got some quite big names. I sort of had this ability to know what would work, and that's something that stood me in good stead over time. Is like, trust your instincts. If you think it's going to work and it's worth a try, then as long as you sell it right and explain why you're doing it, then 99.9% of the time it'll happen and it'll be okay. So, but I left university, obviously, and went to work for a year in Lloyd's TSB in the share registry down in Worthing. And it was just there that a friend of mine who was working alongside me happened to read the newspaper called The Stage, which is the one which has all the jobs for theatres. It starts off with the West End, then it's the off West End, then it's local theatre, and then it gets down to things like, babysitting, anything that they can think of. And at the very, very end was, do you want to work on a cruise ship? If you've tried all the other things, do you want to work on a cruise ship? And I'd never thought of it really. And then I saw this and thought, well, no harm in applying. So I applied for the job. It was with Fred Olsen Cruise Lines for my first cruise line. And years later, I asked them why they'd taken me on out of interest, because I wasn't like anybody else. For their own amusement, they thought it'd be a fun experiment because they'd never had anybody like me apply. And it was good, and I enjoyed it. And then ultimately, I went to Celebrity and then Saga. And then I spent a lot of time on Spirit of Adventure, which is just poking out behind me. And that, in many ways, was trying to do what Noble Caledonia does, but with more people. We had 350 passengers, but every day we were in port. Yeah, every day was in port. So there was very rarely a sea day. Sometimes it was 2 ports in the same day, and it was intense. But I loved that. I really, really loved it. And I was devastated when Saga got rid of the adventure cruising. They decided that everybody wants to sail out of Dover. Even if you're going to the Caribbean, you want to sail out of Dover or Southampton. And the main captain I had, and we got on so well. It was one. You must have it. You must have captains where you just walk on board, you see the captain, and you're like, this is going to be good. Captain Frank Alliker.
Oh, yes.
He left as well, but he came over to Noble via another route. And when I was leaving Saga, Spirit of Adventure, he called me. He was on the Caledonian Sky and said, you should apply for Noble Caledonia. I think you would fit. You'd be different.
So it's all Frank's fault that you ended up here. We'll have to make sure he sees this.
So I ended up there.
Okay, so Neil, by my calculations, that gives you what, a 50, 60-year career at sea by now?
Yes, it's been a little while, but it's when I first joined, the first ship I joined, I remember everyone thought I would last a week, and I was very proud to be there. I became a cruise director when I was 27, which was very, very, very young.
Yeah.
And I look at the pictures now, and I'm quite stunned at how young I was.
You were stunning.
But I always put everything into it, which is the main thing. And always, I never minded who I work with. So often now, I don't know who the team is going to be until I come on board. So then it's a nice surprise.
Yeah, and it doesn't really matter, you know, as long as almost all the people we hire are, you know, very experienced, very professional, very familiar with the product, very familiar with the passengers, familiar with the ship. So it actually isn't these days all that much pre-prep to do, because everyone kind of knows everyone very well. Now, Neil, I wanted to differentiate for a minute. You specialize in destination, which is when we generally don't use Zodiacs. We come alongside a dock, we drop the gangway, and we go on to usually more developed places. And I specialize in expedition, which is where we anchor the ship and use the Zodiacs to get ashore, and those are generally less developed places or wilderness places. But you've done quite a bit of expedition. I've also dabbled a little bit of destination, and we occasionally get to work together, like last year, in places like the Caribbean, which is a lovely mixture of the two. So tell me from your side, destination versus expedition.
Well, we're better. It's the nature of the beast in terms of where you go. I mean, I don't think you could do an expedition cruise in the Baltic. It's just not set up for that. In terms of, you have the major highlights. I mean, I would love to see someone try and do an expedition landing in St. Petersburg. That would be hilarious to see the Russians' response. And the Mediterranean and places lend themselves different ways. I mean, I did an expedition cruise with Jean-Pierre in the Indian Ocean, and of course, there's no way you could do the landings in the Seychelles and hope to find coaches and guides. That's not how it works. So it is interesting. Some passengers occasionally aren't aware of the different setups of the cruises. I know it says in the marketing, but they maybe have done many cruises on a particular ship in a particular way, and then they go on the same ship in a completely different area of the world, and they're surprised to see a full expedition team and things like that. So it's lovely that it gives variety, and it shows that our ships aren't just, you know, this is a ship that does that region and does that. And it provides wonderful variety for the crew as well. I mean, you talk to a lot of, like, the Filipino crew on Serenissima, which I just came off and should be on now. And the fact they'd spent the winter in the Indian Ocean, now they're in the Mediterranean, then they should be in the UK and Baltic and Norway in the summer, and then they're off to the Caribbean in the winter. I mean, I've known friends who have spent 4 years on the same ship and have done 12 ports, just doing the same route, round and round and round. And I don't know how you could do that. So it's lovely we have the variety, but both products, destination and expedition, are fabulous. And then there's that wonderful time when they meet in the middle in places like the Caribbean, where you might be Zodiac landing a lot, but then you're using minivans or things like that, which is where the two combine. And that's probably my favorite in many ways, because you're doing a bit of both. But yeah, so
other nice mixture destinations are Norway. You can sort of swing both ways. New Zealand, you can do a few expedition landings, and you know, also a lot of destination. Those are kind of nice. Sometimes we call them soft expedition, because you can mix it up with some Zodiac work, and you know, yet it's still not quite as wild as a full expedition. I was going to ask you, so the Med, one other thing I was going to say, we sometimes get people doing expedition for the first time that have mainly done destination. You know, we hope, okay, we're going to have a big team and it's quite a lot of action. maybe we'll win them over into this form of cruising. But then sometimes they say, oh yeah, I've cruised loads of times with Neil. And we're like, oh man, like we just don't have that level of onboard programming and entertainment and the evening shows. We're like, listen, you're going to be disappointed by the evening programming. None of us are entertainers in that way. Occasionally you get a staff member who is, but generally we're daytime, biology lectures and that sort of thing. So I must say that you add something to the destination side that we do not, and it's really fun when we get to work together. But I wanted to ask you also specifically about the Med. The Med is such a familiar place to people. It's very close to most of where our guests come from in the UK. Many of them have lived or do live in France or Spain. So it's not like this exotic destination, and yet it's so popular, and especially how we do it on small ships. You are mainly the cruise director for that area. What's the Med for you?
I love the variety. I mean, if you take the Mediterranean to include the Black Sea, which you can do, I mean, I am very fortunate. A couple of years ago, I finally visited Mostar in Bosnia and Herzegovina, and that meant that I then have been to every country that borders the Mediterranean, including the likes of Lebanon and Syria and Libya.
Yes, I was also there in those days. It wasn't that long ago. It was sort of 6-7 years ago. We were in Libya and Syria.
Yeah. Oh, Libya. I mean, I really do pray that, you know, the likes of Leptis Magna in Libya, Crack the Chevalier in Syria, and all these wonderful places are fine. So hopefully one day we can get back, and it would be great for the people there. Your heart goes out to the people who, you know, the guides, the coach drivers, all these people. Suddenly, you know, we're going through this coronavirus pandemic now where jobs are not available, but at least we're safe. And think, you know, so we were in Odessa a couple of years ago with the Island Sky, and it was heartbreaking. The guides were wonderful. The coaches were fantastic. And I said, this is such an amazing welcome. And they said, well, in previous years, we would have 300 cruise ship calls a year. And this year, we've only got you. And it just hits home that, you know, no wonder they're being so welcoming, because they're trying to, the cruise industry is worldwide, but it's very small. We all look at what each other's doing, and you all get the vibe of where somewhere is. You know, if we go somewhere and it turns out to be a disastrous call, they're not welcoming, they don't want us, other cruise lines soon hear of it and are wary. So it serves them well to be nice and to look after us. But no, I love the variety of the Mediterranean. When you think it goes all the way across to, with the Black Sea, to the north coast of Turkey and Georgia and Russia, but then you got the French Riviera, the Greek islands. But it isn't, you know, it can be in turmoil. I mean, I remember as a teenager watching the news with Dubrovnik being bombed, shelled, never thinking I would ever go there, and never thinking it would be a nice place. And yet then when you go to Croatia, oh, it's absolutely stunning. It's so beautiful. I mean, if I had a choice, I would retire with a yacht and just have it sail around the Croatian islands, and that'd be perfect.
Really?
And you've got such contrast.
Croatian side very well, but it's, if I understand it correctly, it's a lot of little places which are nicely positioned for small ships, or is it a lot of, okay.
No, we have the Eleganza ships that do the coast of Croatia, and they do it so well. It's such a, I was honoured to look after one of them for a couple of cruises, and you're going out for dinner in ports where you just stroll ashore and it's there. And of course, with me mostly being on Serenissima, all the deck and engine crew are Croatian, so I promised them I'd give it a plug. But it's stunning. I mean, I just love the variety of the Mediterranean, the sort of ostentation of Monte Carlo compared to some of the other spots on, you know, maybe on the African side or what have you. It's just everything is there. And of course, a ship is the perfect way to see these things.
Yeah. Also, I think it's nice for people not committing to such a long flights, such a long journey to get there. You can even, I think, go by train to a lot of the embarkation ports. So it is quite idyllic. The voyage I did, I don't think I was with you, about 2-3 years ago on the Serenissima. I was there for a different reason. I was actually looking at the Zodiac operation. But everywhere we docked, and not being that familiar with this sort of ease of use of destination cruising, everywhere we docked would be in the downtown of these grand old cities. And we were a very small, unimposing vessel, which is nice because there is these days, you know, sort of sometimes a backlash against some of the bigger vessels, and I can totally understand why. But so we were kind of unimposing, we fitted in, we're smaller than a lot of the super yachts that go to these places. And you'd be in the downtown of these grand cities and you just wander ashore. And the tours are always great, but there'd be time to go to the marketplaces, and you know, you go to the street side cafes, which to me I was like, wow, like this is really nice. You just stay clean and civilized and dry and have like a
Yeah, I have had a few of your colleagues from the expedition side come and do some destination cruising, and they were like, I have a free afternoon, I don't understand, like,
yeah,
well, often it is a case of the mistake that not we used to make, but it's in a way it's an evolution that's happened. It used to be that from the moment you arrived in the port to the moment you left, you had to have organized activities. But so many of the places we go to, because of the size of our ships, as you say, we don't need to dock in the container terminal, which is 10 miles away, and have a shuttle bus. We're in the town. Helsinki, for example, oh my word, you can just step off and you must come. There's a fantastic coffee shop about 50 yards from the gangway, and I have rarely got further than that. Because you do the tour in the morning normally, you know, on a typical day, you do a tour in the morning, and then you have the afternoon to wander back ashore. And sometimes people go and revisit the places they went to in the morning. You know, they had a particular interest in something, they want to go and see more.
Yeah.
And then others might want to just relax on board, have a siesta, what have you. And it really is a wonderful way to do it.
Yeah, it's actually so important to build in that time to, I want to say, participate in the economy, but it's more than that. You know, it is important that people have the time to buy and shop. Otherwise, otherwise you're just coming and going and not really contributing much. But the other side of that, not just economically, but actually get the time to wander around like a local in a way, engage with local people, meet shop owners and restaurant owners and chat with them. And I think that's sometimes the lost art of traveling in this rush type of cruising that, you know, you could do, or any kind of traveling. But maybe that's the lost art.
Pace yourself, yes. I always say to passengers, pace yourselves.
Yeah.
Often it might be the case that, I mean, in St. Petersburg, where you have to go on a short excursion to go ashore, sometimes we have 3 days there, and we have a morning, afternoon, evening, morning, afternoon, evening, morning, afternoon shore excursion.
Yeah, with the ballet in the evening, and yeah.
And I say to them, I mean, I understand that you want to do everything, but just be careful, because you put a circle around the ones you must do, and then with the others, have the ticket, because we include it in the price anyway. Have the ticket, but then you can, you know, if you suddenly feel a bit, you know, tired, or you're going out that evening and you don't want to feel exhausted, then at least you've done what you wanted to do.
Yeah.
You know, so
yeah.
Have a look at it like that. And it's it was, well, you talk about blending in with the locals. One of my favourites moments was one of your assistants, Nicola Hewson, who lives out in
BC, Canada.
Yes, she came on a Baltic cruise with me as my assistant, and we went ashore in Helsinki, and I said, you do realise that everyone is going to think you're a local, because she's very blonde. And she said, no, they won't think that. And sure enough, as we walked along the street, people were talking to her in Finnish, because they just presumed that as she was blonde, she can't be a tourist. She must be from here.
I don't have that problem in Scandinavia.
No. So
no one thinks I'm a local in Scandinavia.
So it's good fun. No, and as you say, it's all about just relaxing and enjoying it. There is, you mentioned, you know, some of the big ships aren't appreciated so much, and I do see why, and I completely sympathise with the locals in the port. And at the same time, you can see that when we arrive, what I love is how, you must have seen it as well, when we arrive in port, often the locals' reaction is to take photographs of the ship. You know, like, oh, look at that, you know, and you get a really nice welcome. I mean, in Norway, with the Serenissima, you get photographed everywhere because the ship is a former Hurtigruten ship.
That's right. So, and I mean, the Serenissima for me is such a classic old beauty. It's an end of an era. You know, our ships aren't going to last forever. But the skies are, I mean, they're beautiful ships, but the Serenissima is a real classic old beauty. I always feel like you have a certain amount of street cred when you rock up in these sort of maritime, ancient maritime destinations on the Serenissima. You really feel quite proud to be on this old beauty. And as you said, people come and take photos. So it's like a little boutique hotel in an old building kind of sensation.
I remember many times I've been on the gangway seeing passengers off, and in some ports, not so many now, but in some ports, the locals could almost be at the end of the gangway. They were, and you just spend an hour answering questions and, you know, about the ship, where it comes, what it is, who built it, and what have you. So yes, it's nice to do that. It's nice.
Yeah. It is going to be eventually when, you know, these ships have to move over. Who knows how long? Maybe another decade. Who knows? But it will be sad not to have, because they don't build ships like that anymore.
No.
So yeah. Anyway, Neil, I'm going to say thank you so much for your time and insights. It's been a joy to chat with you over Zoom, and I'm sure so many people will be glad to see you instead of in the real person on the Serenissima in the Med, on Zoom instead. So we'll take that consolation prize.
It was lovely. We got everyone home on was it the 16th? Yes, the 16th of March. We got everyone back from Turkey, which was a country we were not meant to visit in the first place.
Oh.
And I'll make that the subject of the next blog. I just wanted to say, while I can, thank you to the people who've written in. I've had a lovely response via Travel Post, and with many ideas about things I could write about, and quite a few about things I definitely could not write about.
Were there more of those? No, please don't write about the time that.
Yes, more requests.
Yeah. So Neil, your blog is on the Travel Post section, same as the section. They can read your blog on Neil's Cruise Director Travel Post. Great.
And I think this is going to be the blog for this week, and then next week I'll have written something else. But thank you to everyone. Thank you to you, Pam, as well, for doing this. And I know this sounds a bit creepy, but a big thank you to Tim and Laura Cochrane on behalf of us all, because I know how hard they are working, along with their father Andy, I'm sure, having input, and no doubt Chantel as well, to make sure, you know, we all keep going, and they will be fighting fit and ready to come back as soon as we can. So chin up, everybody, and we'll be back.
Thanks, Neil. That was really well said, and definitely echoes the sentiment I know of a lot of staff. So thanks very much, and enjoy the rest of your day over there.
Thank you. God bless you, Pam.
Okay, bye.